Hello, Ghosts. It is Talking Buccaneers after the first league win of the campaign. An unimpressive one, but a win nonetheless. And before we get stuck in the game, I do want to talk about more serious matters than football. If you would have listened to the previous podcast that we did or read news in general, you would have heard that Orlando Pirates have given head coach Joseph Zinnbauer a leave from work so he could attend to a family emergency in Germany. And at the time that I spoke about it, I did not have enough details on the matter. However, recent news have surfaced on various news sites. And for fear of misinforming anyone, I'm just going to read a paragraph or two from an article that I read online. And the article is by Kickoff. It was published on the 3rd of November 2020. And it reads, "More details have come to light regarding Orlando Pirates coach Joseph Zinnbauer's son Fabio, who is in a coma following a horrific car accident. Zinnbauer jetted out of the country immediately after Sunday afternoon's 3-0 MTN8 semi-final first leg win over arch rivals Kaizer Chiefs at Orlando Stadium. The 50-year-old revealed in his post-match interview that he had a family emergency, but refused to divulge any further information surrounding his sudden departure. Reports have emerged earlier today that Fabio Zinnbauer was injured in a serious accident in Nuremberg on October 23, more than a week prior to last Saturday's Soweto derby, and remains in a coma in hospital. The 24-year-old, who is an amateur footballer for District League side SV Gutenstetten Steinach-Grund, had been driving a black Skoda Octavia before crashing into a truck on Munich Road in Nuremberg at around 1 p.m. on the day. Pirates have granted Zinnbauer leave to be at the bedside of his son, who's fighting for his life, but remain hopeful the former Hamburger SV mentor will return to the club once the situation has improved." The article does then go on to talk about the details of the accident, and it does show a very disturbing image. For those of you that are sensitive to that sort of a thing, I wouldn't recommend that you have a look at it. But if you are interested in reading the article for yourself, it was released by kickoff.com. You can check it out. The reason that I read this or I talk about this is because various stories have emerged in the past week or so with people claiming that Orlando Pirates are trying to lay off Joseph Zinnbauer and that why would he leave his job, and at the middle of a season he signed a contract and all of that. But I just think that football is a wonderful game that brings us joy, and it brings us together for at least 90 minutes, better than anything can in the world right now. But some things are just more important than football, and certainly the life of your own son or just the life of anyone really is more important than football. And, you know, for me, I am a believer and I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and, you know, I know and I believe that God's sovereign will prevail in this situation. Whatever does happen or has happened, it is all God's will. But I do pray that his family, his close friends, Joseph Zinnbauer, they not only accept the situation, but they actually delight in knowing that whatever is happening is the will of God. And that is my prayer and all that I will say on the situation. We hope that the head coach will be back. We do miss him, but we do understand that he has to attend to something more important than a football game. However, let's get stuck in the game now. Where I do want to start off is here. If you would have offered me a scrappy win, meaning that we get 3 points against Celtics in an ugly way, and then going to the Chiefs game on the weekend in the MTN8 second leg of the semi-final, and then qualify for the final, whether it be through a loss or a win or a draw or whatever the result may be, but it means that we qualify for the final, and then going to the international break so that the players can have 2 weeks off to recharge, some to regain fitness from injuries or whatever, and then start again against SuperSport on a clean slate. I definitely would have taken that. However, football fans are some of the hardest people to satisfy in the world, and supporters of a big club are the worst people of the lot. But I do think that the reason why as Orlando Pirates supporters we have become what's made us more satisfied with mediocre standards is that we've faced so much disappointed in the last few years that anything as close to mediocre as possible, we'll take that. I mean, in what world should a full-strength Orlando Pirates team be satisfied with an ugly win against a weakened Bloemfontein Celtics team? Scrappy wins do happen over the course of a campaign, and you should expect scrappy wins in a campaign which is going to have a fixture congestion. However, this is the third scrappy game of the season, two of which have ended in draws, which was a more fair reflection of what we have been doing in the season. A bad reflection of what we're capable of, but it is a good reflection of what we have been doing or how we have been utilizing the resources on hand, the resources that we have at our disposal. And the other thing is, it is too early to be winning ugly. I mean, there are 27 games to go, which are only going to get more. The players are going to get more tired. It's going to get worse with games coming thick and fast, with people getting injured here and there. It's only going to get worse. And if you are scraping for victories in the third game of the season, then it definitely does promise to be a long season. But what was fascinating for me with the game on Wednesday against Bloemfontein Celtics was that we went with the team that beat Kaizer Chiefs, bar Thulani Hlatshwayo, who did go off injured. So we replaced them with Jele, and which the team is arguably our best team right now. I mean, this is the team that has gone out and actually won a game convincingly so, and you can argue for individuals in various positions that the player is probably the best player that we have in that position. So we obviously wanted to win the game. I was fascinated to listen to Fadlu Davids at the end of the game, and he was talking about it was important for the club to pick up 3 points in that game. So we did want to win the game, so we went out with a full strength squad. However, Celtics made a wholesale of changes to their lineup because they played 1-1 against SuperSport United in the semi-final. So their second leg is still there for the taking for either team, and so they rested players in the game against us midweek. The key players like Ndumiso Mabena and various other guys were not in the team. It was a weakened team, to be fair. They would have surrendered to a defeat to us. I mean, they would have counted this, marked it as, a draw would be nice, but if we lose, it's not the end of the world because we still have a big game on the weekend. We have something to play for, which is the MTN 8 final, a spot in the final. And so they would have wanted to keep certain players fresh for that game. And so I'll be frank, it is disappointing to perform the way that we did, taking into account all that I have mentioned. I mean, looking at the game, we did look leggy. I think two things that I do want to talk about, which I'll get to various points within these 2 points. I think one, we looked leggy, but two, I felt that we did not seem like we had a link between midfield and the forward line. There was just so much space in the midfield that it was hard for us to string passes together. It was hard to string. I think it was only a few times that I could actually count 5 consecutive passes that we could play. But on the first point that we look leggy, I thought our tactic this season that we've been utilizing in every game, even from last season, is that we do rely on the pressing system and the counter pressing and the high press system as our weapon of strength, because we have high energy players in our team, the likes of Lepasa, Mango, Hoto now, and Pule. However, Lepasa, for me, not to single him out, but if you've listened to some of the podcasts that I have spoken about him in, is that I do really see him as someone who does instigate our press. He's someone who does offer us energy, and he's someone who is a strong weapon to use in that front line, in that first line of defense. And in this game, he just he looked really leggy. I mean, he went MIA the whole game until I think I saw him once when he missed a big chance around the 80th minute or something like that. Took a shot on with his left foot, which is no excuse, to be honest. But he did take the shot with his left foot, and he sailed it over the bar. I think that was the only time that I actually saw Lepasa or wrote anything about him in my match notes, except when I did write that I'm not seeing him instigate the press. I think that was where we might have lost the game. I do want to look at the next few games to actually maybe solidify that we are a team that really relies on our pressing system to win games. And when we do not press that well, we tend to not play very well. The evidence that I have seen so far is in that Stellenbosch game, and the evidence to prove the opposite, that when we do press really well, we do win, and we win handsomely so, is perhaps not enough evidence, because it is only one game that we have won handsomely so, against Kaizer Chiefs, where I thought the pressing system was insane. It was, to give it a rating, 8 out of 10 at least. Just to come back to that point, I think Lepasa went missing. Someone whom I'll use that as a segue to go on to my next point. Someone whom, even though he had a bad game, you can almost never doubt his application and his energy in the game. I mean, Lepasa's application in the game is something not to doubt. But Pule is just... I will come out swinging again, and I will say this. I think Pule... Let's park Loch and Mango aside for now. I think Pule is someone whom, when he plays well, the team generally plays well. And I think when he's not having a good game, it seems like, or it tends to follow, that the team will not play a good game. I think although he did not have a good game, however, what you cannot doubt about him is his running, his application, his pressing. I thought he was... although he had a poor game on the ball, but I thought his pressing was just good. It was good, maybe a good 6 out of 10 if I am to attach another number to just paint a picture for you of what I thought. I thought most players had a 5 out of 10 game. However, on the pressing side of things, I do think Pule did have a 6 or a 7 out of 10 game. His pressing and his application and his work rate, his work ethic in the game is something that I've never come out of a game and thought, yeah, Pule did not do enough for me in that regard. He's someone whom, even though he has a bad game, the coaching staff seem to really rely on him, and he's someone whom I think I would guess that he's someone that they really trust. It was interesting to listen to Joseph Sinbauer at the end of that derby game on the weekend, when he talked about he might have mentioned Pule's goal and the beautiful touches to score that goal, but something he stressed upon or emphasized was his running, his energy, and his application, his pressing, all of that. And I went out of that game thinking that, look, Pule did not have a good game. On the ball, he did have a couple of shots. I think he had the one shot that we had on target besides the goal, and he had a shot hit the side netting around the 20th minute or something like that. However, just his running and all of that, he was good, he was pressing, but the press as a team did seem disjointed. But my segue that I want to get into as my next point is that I will keep saying that I feel like Pule is better suited to play as our number 8 than he is as our wing. I think he is quick, although he's not got lightning speed, but he is quick. But I think we would get more out of him playing him in the number 8 or number 10 position. Also, looking at his age, I think he's 28. I do stand to be corrected. He's 28 or 27. So he's definitely at the peak of his powers, or maybe at the brink of that. Maybe he might play at the peak of his powers for the next 3 years or so. It depends with players. Different players do peak at different ages, but generally what you see is that players at around the age of 27 to 30, 31, I mean, except you know, the wild cards of this world, the Hlompo Kekanas, the Teko Modises, and you know, the Cristiano Ronaldos internationally, if we did the Zlatan Ibrahimovic's of this world. But you do expect that most players do peak around the age of 27 to 30, and after that he might then maybe struggle with his pace. I think he might be on the downward slope of his pace if it has not started yet. I don't know if he's gonna develop any further than he is right now in terms of pace and speed and all of that, and quickness and stuff. But what he will certainly become better at is his game experience, of course, and just his reading of the game, his game intelligence and all of that. And I think he's someone whom we could get a lot out of in midfield. He does look like he has more space in the middle of the park to work magic on the ball, to turn, to take a shot on, whereas when he's playing on the wing, he has to come inside. Sometimes you do run into traffic coming from outside. Sometimes he vacates that area where we then don't have an option out wide, which was the case on Wednesday, where I thought at times we played with Euster alone on that wing and he did not have an option. We seemed to overload the left side of the field and we were almost like crowding that area where we did not have space to actually work a chance, and there's so much space on the right side. So I do want to say that I think Pule is someone who we should utilize in that number 8 position. I think he's someone we could get a lot of. I saw a bit of it in that Stellenbosch game where in the second half we were playing with, he was playing in that number 8/10 role where he was coming from deep in the midfield, aiding the options in midfield. And it's something that I did have a problem with in this game, where I thought there was no one aiding the midfield in this game. Munari and Mutsuari were playing really deep, which I don't think was their fault. I think it was a tactical instruction. They are deep lying number 6s, and they do well playing as a 2. However, going forward, you then need someone who's going to be a link between our midfield and our forwards. Where in that game, I thought we had 4 people just, it seemed like we played with a 4-2-4 and there was just no one linking. It seemed like all the 4 players in the forward line wanted to get in behind. No one was playing between the lines. No one was being an option in the half spaces, in the channels, to pick up the ball and maybe create from that position. And I think if we use Pule in that position, he's someone who's very nifty on the ball. He's very smart. He's got a decent touch. He's got a shot on him. He's got a good pass on him, and he can turn, he can dribble, and he can do all that sort of a thing. And it did seem like it got better in the second half when we introduced Ndlovu and we changed the formation. We switched from the 4-2-3-1, which was a system we were using in the Chiefs game and in the first half, and a bit into the second half of the Celtics game, we were playing a 4-2-3-1. But as soon as we got Ndlovu on the field, who I think replaced, in principle, he replaced Munari in the midfield, but I think he came on for Jukamanja, who got injured in around the 50th minute mark or something like that. We then changed formation and we went with a 3 at the back. I will not talk about how much I love Maela's versatility, who can play as a left wing back and as a left centre back and as an orthodox left back. I will not talk about that, but we then deployed or employed or utilized, whatever the word is. We then used a 3-4-3 system where we had a 3 at the back of Maela on the left centre back. In the centre of defence, we used Happy Chele, and at the right centre back position, we used Ntsikelelo Nyawuza. Euster was playing the right wing back, and the left wing back was then Paseka Mako, who came on for, I think he then came on for Munari. He then came on for Munari, and Ndlovu was for Jukamanja. That is at least as they had it with the substitution board and all of that. Paseka Mako then was playing the left wing back, and we had Ndlovu and Mutsuari as the 2 central midfielders. And the front 3 was Lepasa, Pule, and Hoto, whom I do not want to get into Hoto, but he came on with he was a bit lively when he came on in the early minutes and then went MIA for the rest of the game. And I will also not talk about why I do not like Hoto in that left wing position, whom I saw pop up in the right wing position a few times in the game, and I think he should be used there, if not in the left wing back position. However, what I liked about when we had Ndlovu, and not because he then went on to score a beautiful goal that won us the game, but I think the reason why he did pop up and score in that position was no coincidence. I think Celtics did become a bit complacent in that midfield area, because for large periods of the game there was no one threatening them in terms of running with the ball in midfield or getting in those channels. There was really no one. Lepasa was occupying the centre backs, and our wingers were occupying the side backs. Chukamanja also, I mean, he did pop up in different positions to get a touch on the ball, but no one was really threatening those inside channels or that 10 zone, that danger zone where most chances are created from. And so it was no coincidence for me that Ndlovu scored from that position. And I mean, I do want to talk about how impressed I was of Mako, who didn't play in the derby, I suspect because of the mistake that he made in the Stellenbosch game, or just because Mayela was maybe rested in that Stellenbosch game for the derby. But I do think that Mako is someone who is really good on the ball. I have mentioned in the past that I think he is a convert. He was maybe a midfielder in the past or a forward. And you do see him on the ball. He's someone who typically wants to take the ball and run at people. And what he was doing is he was running infield with the ball, which I thought was smart because if you have Hotto on that left wing occupying the touchline or staying on the touchline, then it is almost redundant to have Marco also run down the flank. So I thought he was smart in cutting infield with the ball. And this is how the goal came. But who I want to talk about is, in principle, is Ndlovu, who I thought the contrast between him and Mutsuari is the reason why I do like them playing as a two. I think if you're going to play Munari and Mutsuari, then you need someone to play in that attacking 8 position. Either, for me, you're going to play Pule, or we've still got guys like Mahaka, whom we haven't seen a great deal of since he came to the club. You have guys like Lindam Tambo who can play in that position. I think he's someone who's good at dictating play, although maybe someone might argue he's better suited playing deep. But I do think we have various options. But for me, I think Pule is better suited in that 8. If not him, then I think Ndlovu, what you have with Ndlovu is that he's a very dynamic player. He runs into that. He runs with the ball. He likes moving forward, which is a contrast of what Mutsuari does, who's brilliant at what he does. Mutsuari, he's a deep lying midfielder. He dictates the tempo. He gets the ball moving around the pitch. However, you do need someone who's going to attack in that middle of the park area. And we had Ndlovu, who then came on and he scored the goal, a brilliant goal. The second shot on target, shockingly. But we did win the game. And, again, I am happy that we won the game. However, I am not happy with the surrounding circumstances around the win of the game. I think that we've got a long way to go. I believe that if there's a season that we've had a chance to win the league, it is this. Sundowns, with their change in the dressing room dynamics, the departure of Pitso Mosimane, I feel like that can potentially harm the fluency and the consistency and the chemistry of a dressing room. Two, with Chiefs is just not good enough. With the ban not being able to sign players, and although a lot might disagree with me on this, but also to just throw in a lot of youngsters into the first 11 all at once, I just don't see them. They don't stand a chance. I think it's just going to be a constant thing that people complaining about, Chiefs this, Chiefs that. I think with young players, you ease them and you don't just throw in 10 of them onto the field. I think it is something that you do gradually. And 3, which might be a quirky one, is that at every turn of the decade, or rather let me say, with every season that began at the start of a decade, Pirates have won that season. This is a new decade. This season started at the start of a new decade. So every time that's happened in the past, in the era of the PSL, Pirates have won the league in that season. The other thing is, every time that a team from Pretoria have won 3 on the spin, Pirates have won the 4th season that follows that. Look, it is a big ask to rely on those sorts of things to win us the league, but I guess we'll see. I mean, we do stand a chance also with the squad that we have. the personnel in our team, although maybe I'll make a podcast about why I fear for the number of signings and the type of signings that we have made and why I think they are potentially detrimental to our progress. However, the personnel that we have, and taking into account the context of what is happening around our club, I do think if there's a chance, I believe it is this season. But if what I believe is to come about, then we've got a long way to go still in convincing me with the performances. There's a consistency and a fluency which we still lack, and we need to pick up fast before someone in Pretoria runs away with it again. Sunday is a chance to convince me, but the real chance to convince me is 2 weeks from now against SuperSports United. But for now, I'll take an ugly win into the derby up the Mighty Bucs. See you after the Chiefs game.